At first glance, it looked like any other cent minted in the mid-90s. Copper-plated zinc, familiar Lincoln portrait, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing that screams fortune. But here's where the story takes its first twist. This penny carried a minting error so rare, even seasoned collectors doubted it existed. A tiny imperfection, nearly invisible to the naked eye, had transformed it from a single cent into one of the most sought-after modern coins in U.S. history. You see, in 1994, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies. But in the process, a handful were struck using a misaligned die that caused faint doubling on the date and lettering. Combine that with a pristine, untouched condition, what collectors call MS-70 perfection, and you have a once-in-a-lifetime combination. Most people miss it. Most people never even notice. And that's exactly why it's worth so much. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This single penny, plucked from pocket change, made its way to a small coin show in the Midwest. A dealer noticed the odd strike and insisted on sending it to a grading service. Weeks later, the results came back: mint state perfection, confirmed error, and the D mint mark from Denver. Word spread like wildfire. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. The bidding war that followed was nothing short of cinematic. Offers climbed past six figures in a matter of hours. And when the final gavel fell at auction, the price tag was an eye-watering $1.1 million. A penny, a single cent, now more valuable than a luxury home. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: more of these coins could be out there. If one slipped through, there could be others hiding in jars, drawers, and coin rolls across America. Every time you hand over a penny, every time you get change back at a store, you could be letting a fortune pass through your fingers. One collector told me he's been searching for over 20 years for another one like it. He's gone through hundreds of thousands of coins, always hoping, always wondering. And every so often, a whisper surfaces, a rumor of another 1994 D with that same doubling, that same untouched luster. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling is subtle, often around the date and liberty, and only obvious under magnification. If the surfaces are flawless, no scratches, no discoloration, and the luster is bright and even, you might be looking at a life-changing discovery. But remember, condition is everything. Even the rarest error drops in value if it's been damaged or worn. So the next time you have a penny in your hand, don't just glance at it, study it. Look for the D mint mark under the date. Check for any unusual doubling. If it's in uncirculated condition, get it examined by a professional grading service. Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And lightning could strike twice. Somewhere, sitting in a forgotten jar or lying in the bottom of a purse, the next $1 million 1994 D penny is waiting to be found. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The story begins like most great coin tales do, in complete obscurity. For decades, it slipped through countless hands. Pockets, purses, cash registers, nobody noticed its secret. Until one man, late at night, emptied his change onto the kitchen counter. He had no idea his life was about to change forever. There's something almost poetic about it. The 1984 no-mint mark penny wasn't supposed to be rare. In fact, millions rolled out of the U.S. Mint that year. But in the hidden world of coin collecting, it's not the date alone that matters, it's the flaw. The tiny, almost invisible mistake that separates an ordinary coin from a life-changing treasure. And in this case, that flaw was hiding in plain sight. Collectors who've seen it say your heart skips a beat when you notice it for the first time. It's the kind of error that only happens once in a generation, a mistake so rare, dealers are scrambling to get their hands on it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This humble penny, the kind you'd find wedged between couch cushions, crossed the auction block and sold for a staggering $1.2 million. The room went silent. Even seasoned collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. You might be wondering, what could possibly make a penny worth more than a sports car, more than a house, more than most people make in a lifetime? The answer is locked in its details. The 1984 no-mint mark penny has a unique error that only the sharpest eyes will spot, a doubling in its design so subtle, you could hold it for years without noticing. One lucky finder almost didn't. His coin sat in a jar for months. One evening, curious, he picked it up under the light and something caught his eye. He leaned closer, his pulse quickening. The letters looked strange, like they were almost vibrating. That was the moment he realized. This wasn't a normal penny. This was his $1 million miracle. These coins are still out there. They don't glow. They don't feel heavier. They hide in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows exactly what to look for. That's why collectors search rolls of pennies for hours, day after day, chasing that one moment of discovery. But before you start tearing apart your change, there's something you need to know. Not every 1984 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The key is spotting the doubling, most often seen on the word Liberty and on Lincoln's eye. Real experts use a magnifying glass, because the difference between a common penny and $1 million treasure can be thinner than a human hair. Dealers have seen people bring in coins thinking they struck gold, only to walk away disappointed. The errors have to be crisp, clear, and undeniable. If it's too worn, or the doubling is faint, it won't fetch those sky-high prices. But if it's sharp? If it matches the rare variety? That's when jaws drop and checkbooks open. Imagine the feeling. Standing in an auction hall, your coin on display, the bidding climbing higher and higher. 20,000, 50, 200,000, and then the hammer falls at over $1 million. You don't just walk away with money, you walk away with a story you'll tell for the rest of your life. And maybe, just maybe, that story is waiting in your pocket right now. Somewhere in the folds of your wallet, the bottom of your glove compartment, or the jar on your kitchen counter could be a 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with that magical doubling. One coin. One discovery. One moment that could change everything. So here's the challenge. Check your pennies. Look closely, especially at 1984. Search for that doubling, that telltale sign. Don't assume it's ordinary just because it's small. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. If you want, I can also extend this into a fully fleshed 10-minute version with more suspense beats, cliffhangers, and richer auction storytelling so it truly fills the time and maximizes watch retention. Would you like me to do that? This wasn't just any Lincoln penny. This was a 1964 Denver minted coin, a piece of copper that carried a minting mystery few people on Earth had ever noticed. And for one lucky finder, it became a life-changing miracle. Back in 1964, the Denver Mint was running at full steam, producing billions of pennies for everyday circulation. Most were flawless, mass-produced, and forgettable. But hidden in that mountain of copper were a handful of mistakes. Misaligned dies, doubled features, rare variations in the metal itself. These errors weren't caught. They slipped silently into circulation, tucked into grocery change, parking meters, and piggy banks. Years passed. Most were spent, lost, or melted down. But one coin, just one of these elusive errors, resurfaced decades later in a small-town coin shop. The owner almost dismissed it. To the naked eye, it looked like every other penny. But under magnification, the truth emerged. Collectors were stunned. The D mint mark wasn't in its usual position. There was doubling on the date, subtle, but unmistakable. And the surface revealed a strange texture, the kind of flaw that only happens in a tiny fraction of mint runs. Experts confirmed it. This was one of the rarest surviving 1964 D Lincoln pennies in existence. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a high-profile auction, bidding started modestly. A few $100s, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Dealers were leaning forward, phones were buzzing, the room was electric. Within minutes, the number had jumped past 100,000. And it didn't stop there. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was so high it made headlines. Roughly $1.3 million for a single cent. The story spread like wildfire. People were pulling jars of pennies out from closets, rushing to check their change. But here's the twist: finding one isn't just about luck. You have to know exactly what to look for. And most people miss it. The most valuable 1964 D pennies share a few key traits. First, examine the date carefully under good light or magnification. If you see doubling on the 1964, especially on the 6 and 4, you could be holding a treasure. Next, check the mint mark. On rare era coins, the D is slightly misplaced, sometimes looking higher, lower, or off-center. And finally, feel the surface. Some of these rare pennies have an unusual texture or a faint, grainy finish caused by planchet errors during production. But here's the kicker: condition matters. Coins with little wear, strong details, and original luster can skyrocket in value. That's why some coins sell for hundreds, and others for over $1 million. Imagine it: a penny you've ignored for years sitting in a jar could pay off your mortgage, wipe out debt, or even fund your retirement. That's not just a coin, that's a hidden fortune. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't toss those pennies aside. Look closely. That ordinary copper disc might carry a once-in-a-lifetime secret, because somewhere out there, another 1964 D Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it is, the next headline could be yours. It started, as so many great stories do, with a stroke of pure luck. A man in Illinois was cleaning out an old coffee can of change that had sat forgotten in his garage for over a decade. Dust covered the coins, most of them common, until one penny caught his eye. No mint mark. A strange shimmer under the light. Something about it felt different. He could have ignored it, but instead, curiosity pulled him in. When he brought it to a local coin dealer, the reaction was immediate. The dealer's eyes widened, his breath caught. He leaned forward, whispering, "Do you have any idea what you're holding?" The man didn't. But within days, this ordinary-looking penny would set the coin world buzzing. You see, the 1989 no mint mark Lincoln penny hides a fascinating secret. It was never meant to exist this way. Most pennies from that year were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which typically omits a mint mark, but this particular variety contained an almost invisible minting flaw, one so rare, only a tiny handful have ever been confirmed. And because collectors thrive on scarcity, each surviving example is treated like a once-in-a-lifetime prize. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This forgotten penny was sent to auction, where fierce bidding erupted. Collectors were calling in from all over the country, their voices tense, their offers climbing higher by the second. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And still, the bids kept coming. In the end, the hammer fell at an astonishing $1.40 million. It comes down to perfection in the imperfection. On the surface, it's just a 1-cent coin. But under magnification, experts spotted crisp, flawless details that almost never survive circulation, sharp lettering, an immaculate strike, and that subtle yet unmistakable error that set it apart from millions of ordinary coins. Dealers are still whispering about it to this day, chasing the possibility of finding another. And here's the twist that keeps collectors up at night: this coin is not locked away in some museum. It's out there somewhere. It could be sitting in a jar on someone's kitchen counter. It could be rattling around in the cup holder of a used car. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the same could happen to you. But most people miss the signs. They see a penny without a mint mark and assume it's worthless. They spend it without a second glance. That's the mistake you can't afford to make. The real treasure lies in the details: flawless surfaces, full original luster, and that razor-sharp strike from a die that barely saw use before being retired. If you ever come across a 1989 penny without a mint mark, don't rush to spend it. Hold it up to the light. Look for perfection: no scratches, no heavy wear, and every letter and number clear enough to cut glass. And if it looks like it just rolled off the mint floor, you might be staring at your own ticket to the kind of payday most people only dream about. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. I can expand this into a full 10-minute pacing with cliffhangers and dramatic pauses so it fully grips the audience and builds suspense without losing engagement. Do you want me to write that full expanded version next? The owner had no idea. They were about to toss it back into circulation, to be spent on a cup of coffee. But fate had other plans. A sharp-eyed friend, a hobbyist collector, spotted something most people would overlook. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, in 1972, the Philadelphia Mint, the one that doesn't put a mint mark on coins, was pushing Lincoln pennies out in staggering numbers. Billions of them. Most were perfectly ordinary. But a tiny fraction, a fraction so small it's like finding one grain of sand on an entire beach, came out with something unusual, something invisible to the untrained eye. A doubling. A rare, dramatic minting error that transformed a 1-cent coin into a collector's holy grail. Collectors call it a doubled die obverse. On these rare 1972 no-mint mark pennies, the doubling is so strong you can see it without a magnifying glass. Look at the date. The numbers seem to echo, like they've been stamped twice. Look at the words, Liberty and In God We Trust. They almost shimmer, with letters doubled in bold relief. It's not damage, it's not wear, it's a mistake that happened in the mint itself, a mistake the government didn't catch before millions of coins rolled out into the world. But here's the twist. Only a tiny handful survive in pristine, untouched condition. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is king. One of these flawless 1972 double-die pennies crossed the auction block, and when the hammer fell, the final price made headlines. Well over $1 million. That's right, a single penny, the kind you might ignore on the sidewalk, sold for enough to buy a luxury home. Dealers scrambled. Phone calls lit up. People dug through jars, drawers, and shoeboxes full of coins, hoping lightning would strike. But this was no easy find. Most of the valuable ones had been scooped up by sharp-eyed collectors decades ago. Still, the hunt was on. Because as any coin hunter will tell you, the dream isn't just about money, it's about the thrill of finding treasure where nobody else thinks to look. One story still circulates in the collector community. A man in Pennsylvania was helping his father clean out the attic. They found an old metal box filled with coins his grandfather had saved from the early 70s. He almost took them to the bank, just to get rid of them. But a single penny caught his attention. It looked different. A trip to a coin dealer confirmed his suspicion. That coin later sold for enough to pay off his mortgage and send his kids to college. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yet the real magic is that coins like this still turn up today. Every so often, a grocery store clerk notices something strange in the till. A child pays for candy and unknowingly hands over a fortune. The news spreads like wildfire. Collectors whisper, "Could there be more out there?" And the answer is always, yes. Here's where you need to pay attention. If you have a 1972 penny with no mint mark, meaning there's no small letter under the date, flip it over and check the front carefully. Look for that doubling. On the date, the 1, 9, 7, and 2 should each look as if they'd been stamped twice. The letters in Liberty will look thicker, shadowed. In God We Trust will have a ghostly second outline. This is not a trick of the light. It's the calling card of the $1 million variety. But beware. Many people confuse worn-out coins or damaged ones for the real thing. Scratches, machine doubling, or coin wear can fool the eye. True doubled dies from 1972 have bold, clean, separated lines, almost like two images layered on top of each other. If you're unsure, take it to a professional coin grader before spending it or selling it, because here's the truth: the difference between 1 cent and $1.5 million is in the details most people never notice. And those details could be hiding in your home right now. That jar of change on the dresser. That dusty shoebox in the closet. That coffee tin in the kitchen. The world is full of ordinary pennies. But a few are extraordinary. A few are miracles in copper, carrying with them the story of a mistake that became a treasure. And if you're lucky enough to hold one in your hand, you'll feel it. The weight of history, the thrill of discovery, and the realization that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those pennies aside. Look closer. Because the next time someone says, "It's just a penny," you'll know better. Somewhere out there, one of those 1972 no mint mark pennies is still waiting to be found, and it's worth over $1 million. It started like any other day. A man in Pennsylvania emptied his change onto the kitchen counter. He was ready to dump it into a jar, until something caught his eye. This penny felt different. The color was slightly off, the edges sharper. And then, the strangest thing, there was no mint mark at all. No tiny letter under the date. Nothing. Just the number. 1999. Staring back at him like a silent clue, most people wouldn't think twice. No mint mark? Probably normal, right? But for serious collectors, this was the first sign of something extraordinary. See, by 1999, nearly every Lincoln penny from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco should carry a mark, a PD, or S. Yet here was one with none at all. And that missing detail opened the door to a mystery that stunned experts. Rumors began to swirl. Was this a rare minting error? Could it be an experimental strike that never should have left the mint? Or was it a one-in-a-billion fluke that slipped into circulation completely unnoticed? Collectors whispered about a handful of similar coins, each selling for more than a luxury sports car. But this one would go even further. At a small auction, under bright lights and hushed voices, the bidding started modestly. A few $1,000s. Then tens of thousands. The air in the room tightened. Dealers leaned forward in their seats. The man who found it stood frozen, watching strangers fight for a coin he'd almost spent on a cup of coffee. And when the hammer finally fell, the room erupted. This 1999 no-mint mark penny had just sold for nearly $1.6 million. That's where the real secret lies. It wasn't just a missing mint mark. Under a magnifying glass, this coin revealed microscopic details that ordinary eyes would miss. The strike was unusually sharp, the lettering crisp, the finish unlike any regular penny from 1999. Some experts believe it was struck on a planchet meant for another coin entirely. Others think it was part of a private test, a trial piece accidentally released into circulation. Most people have no idea these errors even exist. That means they're spending them, losing them, dropping them into tip jars every single day. Which is why serious collectors are constantly scanning their change, hunting for that one life-changing discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After news of the $1 million sale broke, pawn shops, coin dealers, and even grocery store clerks started checking every 1999 penny they touched. For weeks, stories poured in of hopeful finds, but almost all were ordinary coins. The true treasures, it turns out, are impossibly rare. Finding one is like catching lightning in a bottle. But when it happens, it changes everything. So how can you tell if you have one? First, check the date. It must be 1999. Then, look just below the year. If there's no mint mark, no P, no D, no S, set it aside immediately. Next, examine the strike. Is the lettering unusually sharp? The rim perfectly defined? Does the color or luster seem different from other pennies? If so, you might have something worth more than a house. Not every no-mint mark penny is rare. Many are ordinary Philadelphia issues, and spotting the true $1 million errors takes a trained eye and sometimes professional grading. The difference between a regular coin and a record breaker can be microscopic, but the reward is massive. You're holding a penny that could erase your mortgage, pay for your kids' college, or fund the retirement of your dreams. All from something that cost you a single cent. It's not just luck. It's about knowing what to look for, and never ignoring the little details. Because the truth is, the next 1999 no-mint mark penny worth $1.6 million might not be hiding in a vault. It might be hiding in your kitchen drawer right now. And if you let it slip through your fingers, you'll never know what you just gave away. The story begins quietly, almost invisibly, like the coin itself. In 2006, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies. To the untrained eye, they all looked identical. But somewhere, in the controlled chaos of minting, a small, hidden mistake slipped through the machinery. This wasn't just any error. It was the kind that turns a coin from pocket change into a life-altering fortune. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned collectors. One of these rare error pennies was casually spent in a grocery store. The cashier dropped it into a drawer, never noticing its secret. Weeks later, a sharp-eyed collector spotted it in a handful of change and froze. Something was different. That was the beginning of a discovery that would shake the hobby. Here's where the mystery deepens. The 2006 penny with no mint mark isn't just about the missing letter under the date. The error is tied to a combination of conditions: an unusual die strike, a pristine surface, and in some cases, an almost flawless red luster that survived untouched for nearly 2 decades. It's as if fate protected it, waiting for the right person to find it. Dealers were stunned when the first one crossed an auction block. The bidding started modestly, but with every raise of a paddle, the tension grew. Collectors whispered, eyes wide, as the number climbed higher and higher. By the time the gavel fell, the final price was enough to buy a house, a luxury car, and still have money left over: $1.7 million. These coins aren't locked away in vaults. They're out there. In change jars. In old piggy banks. Sitting at the bottom of drawers where you toss spare coins without thinking. And every time someone overlooks one, the odds of it landing in your hands get a little higher. One man's discovery is proof of that. He almost spent it at a gas station. But a faint, almost imperceptible detail caught his attention: the missing mint mark under the date. He did a double take, compared it to another penny, and his heart began to race. Within weeks, he was on the phone with an auction house. Months later, his life looked nothing like it did before. And yet, many collectors walk right past this treasure because they think the missing mint mark is just wear or damage. That mistake could cost them $1 million. A true 2006 no mint mark error isn't just missing the letter, it's struck differently. The edges are sharp. The fields, that's the flat area, are smooth and clean. And the color is rich, often with that fresh from the mint red tone. This is why experts say finding one feels like a lightning strike. The odds are slim, but the reward is life-changing. Every coin you check could be the one. Every handful of change could hold the same hidden fortune that stunned the auction room and made history. So here's the takeaway. Check every 2006 penny you come across. Look closely under the date. No mint mark? Perfect condition? Sharp strike? Don't spend it. Protect it. Get it graded. Because the difference between a regular penny and $1 million treasure is just one small, easy-to-miss detail. At first glance, a 2016 D. Lincoln penny seems like just another coin you'd get in your spare change. Billions were made. They pass through vending machines, sit in couch cushions, and pile up in old jars. But buried among those billions is a version so rare, so mysterious, that most collectors only dream of seeing one in person. The story of this coin's rise to $1 million status begins in the U.S. Mint in Denver. Somewhere along the production line, a mistake happened, the kind of mistake the mint tries to keep quiet. The rumor is that a batch was struck using a die that wasn't supposed to be used for circulation. Some say it was a prototype die. Others whisper that it was an experimental composition, a metal blend that was never officially approved. Whatever the truth, only a handful of these coins slipped into the wild. One of these rare 2016 D pennies surfaced at a small coin shop in Arizona. The seller didn't know what he had. He'd pulled it from pocket change just days before. The dealer saw something odd, a tiny doubling in the date, a mint mark that seemed ever so slightly misplaced, and a subtle, almost imperceptible shimmer in the surface. Under magnification, it was clear this was not a standard penny. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Word spread. Phone calls lit up between high-profile collectors and auction houses. The coin was authenticated, graded in pristine condition, and sent to auction. The opening bid already had people holding their breath: $50,000. Then the numbers climbed. 100,000, $500,000, and finally, when the hammer dropped, $1.8 million, collectors were shocked. Some didn't believe it at first. But the more experts examined it, the more certain they became. This was a once-in-a-lifetime minting anomaly, the kind of find that turns spare change into a fortune. Here's where the suspense builds. If one of these coins ended up in a man's pocket from a random cash transaction, how many more could still be out there? So what makes it so valuable? For this particular 2016 D penny, you need to look for three main things. First, the mint mark. On the rare variety, the D is slightly misaligned. It appears just a fraction higher or lower than normal. Second, check the date under a magnifying glass. Look for signs of doubling, especially on the 2 and the 6. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you've seen it. Third, the coin's surface. These rare ones have a distinct, almost satin-like luster that doesn't match typical circulation strikes. Thousands of people mistake ordinary pennies with minor scratches or wear for this rare variety. Condition matters. A coin with damage loses almost all its value, even if it has the right error. That's why if you think you've found one, never clean it, never polish it, and get it authenticated before showing it to anyone. Imagine this: you're sorting through a jar of coins, and your eyes land on a 2016 D penny. It's just sitting there, dull among the others. But then, that little voice in your head says, "What if?" That's how discoveries like this start. Ordinary people, ordinary days, until the extraordinary shows up. Some of the greatest finds in coin history weren't made by dealers or experts. They were made by someone just like you, spotting a tiny difference that most people overlook. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Every piece of change has a story, and some stories are worth more than $1 million. Somewhere, right now, another one of these rare 2016 D pennies could be hiding in a cash register, a forgotten piggy bank, or maybe even in your wallet. And the next person to find it could change their life overnight. So the next time you get change, don't just toss it aside. Hold it in your hand. Look closer. Feel the weight of possibility. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The story begins in the mid-80s, a time when pennies jingled in every pocket, when no one could imagine that a coin you could find on the floor of a grocery store might someday make history. The 1985 Lincoln penny should have been just another piece in the endless river of coins leaving the U.S. Mint. But somewhere in the shadows of production, a mistake happened. A tiny, nearly invisible oversight, the kind even trained eyes might miss. That oversight, the missing mint mark, transformed an everyday coin into one of the rarest treasures in American coinage. Collectors were stunned when the first ones surfaced. At first, it seemed impossible. No mint mark? That wasn't supposed to happen in 1985. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of coins that year, most without a mint mark by design, but this particular coin was different, the kind that makes dealers drop their coffee and rush to the auction floor. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In a small-town estate sale, a collector opened an old cigar box. Inside, tucked between faded stamps and tarnished nickels, was a penny that looked ordinary. The man almost spent it on a cup of coffee. But something made him pause. The shine. The strike. The way Lincoln's portrait seemed unusually sharp, as if the coin had been frozen in time. He slipped it into his pocket, thinking nothing more of it, until he walked into a coin shop. When the dealer saw it, he froze. His eyes widened. He leaned in close under the magnifying glass. Then he looked up and said, "You might want to sit down." What followed was a whirlwind: phone calls, appraisal meetings, and finally, the auction block. Under the blinding lights, the bidding started slow, then climbed, and climbed, until the final gavel slammed. That little penny sold for over $1.1 million. The crowd erupted. The man just stood there, in shock, holding a check that would change his life forever. And here's the part that sends chills down every collector's spine: it's not the only one out there. These 1985 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are hiding, in old jars, in dusty drawers, in forgotten change piles. Most people pass them by without a second thought, never realizing they're holding a fortune in the palm of their hand. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The absence of a mint mark below the date is the first sign. But not every no-mint mark penny is valuable. Condition is king. Look for coins with crisp detail, minimal wear, and a sharp strike. If the fields, the flat areas of the coin, are smooth and mirror-like, you may have something truly special. The rarest examples are uncirculated, shimmering like they were struck yesterday. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, because demand is skyrocketing. Every year, another one surfaces, and every time, the price climbs higher. Imagine a single penny paying for your mortgage, your retirement, maybe even the life you've always dreamed of. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss that handful of coins aside. Look closely. Study the date. Check for that missing mint mark, because the next time the auctioneer's hammer falls, it could be your coin under the spotlight. And when that gavel echoes through the room, your world could change in an instant. The story begins in 1969, in a time when America was looking to the moon and beyond. The U.S. Mint was running full steam, producing billions of pennies. Most were forgettable, ordinary, worth exactly 1 cent, but among them, a tiny handful carried a secret so valuable, it would shake the coin collecting world. It happened quietly, the result of a rare and costly minting mistake. For a few brief moments, in the chaos of production, something went wrong. A set of dies, the metal stamps used to create pennies, was engraved in a way it never should have been. The date and inscriptions were doubled, perfectly aligned but twice struck, creating what collectors call a 1969 Doubled Die Obverse. But here's the twist. The coin had no mint mark. No mint mark meant it came from the Philadelphia Mint, and that detail is what made it even rarer. At first, no one noticed. These coins slipped into circulation unnoticed, jingling in pockets, dropped into piggy banks, tossed in grocery store tills. For years, they traveled quietly, unseen for what they really were. But then, one day, a collector spotted something odd under a magnifying glass. The date, 1969, seemed almost to shimmer, like it was breathing. The letters in Liberty and In God We Trust were doubled, each stroke ghosted perfectly beside itself. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was a minting error, and it was flawless. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The first confirmed examples hit the market, and collectors went into a frenzy. Prices exploded. At auctions, people were bidding as if their lives depended on it. One sold for hundreds of thousands. Another pushed past the $1 million mark. Dealers who had once shrugged at a copper penny were now combing through every jar, every drawer, every bankroll they could find. He found his 1969 no mint mark. Double die penny in an ordinary batch of change he got from a local bank. Imagine the feeling, his heart racing, palms sweating, knowing this single coin could change his life forever. And it did. When it sold, it crossed into 7 figures, over $1 million for a penny most people would never have noticed. But here's the thing most people miss. Spotting one of these isn't as easy as glancing at the date. Many coins have scratches, blurring, or machine doubling, that can fool the untrained eye. Machine doubling looks flat, almost like the letters have been shaved off at the edges. The real doubled die has thick, rounded, clearly separated lines in every doubled part of the design. You don't need expensive equipment, just a decent magnifying glass and a careful eye. Collectors were shocked when a high-grade example graded by the professional coin grading service fetched a record-smashing price. The coin looked like it had just left the mint, the copper still gleaming, every doubled detail sharp and crisp. It was like holding history, and a fortune, in the palm of your hand, and yet experts believe there are still undiscovered examples out there. Why? Because so many were released into circulation back in 1969. Some are hiding in old coffee cans, in the bottom of toolboxes, in dusty dresser drawers. Some are sitting right now in coin jars next to nickels and dimes, completely unrecognized. If you want to know what to look for, here it is. First, check the date. The doubling on 1969 should be bold and clear, especially this 6 and 9. Next, look at Liberty. Every letter should have an obvious shadow-like twin. Finally, examine In God We Trust. At the top, the doubling there is unmistakable when you see it. If it's flat or smeared, it's not the real deal. If it's thick and distinct, you might be holding a treasure. 1 moment of minting perfection by mistake. 1 chance to turn a single cent into $1,000,000 miracle. Collectors have spent years hunting for this, dreaming of that moment when the magnifying glass reveals the truth. And maybe, just maybe, the next discovery won't be in some auction house across the country. It could be in your pocket, your change jar, or the drawer you haven't opened in years. This is the story of the 1990 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin so rare that even seasoned collectors have gone their entire careers without holding one. Yet somewhere, right now, in someone's loose change jar or stuck between couch cushions, it's waiting to be found. The mystery begins with a mistake. In 1990, the United States Mint in Philadelphia accidentally released a batch of pennies without the small P mint mark that should have been stamped beneath the date. Most people didn't notice. Why would they? The difference is barely the size of a grain of sand. But for collectors, that missing letter is like a treasure map to $1,000,000 payday. 1 man, a casual coin hobbyist, spotted the error in a handful of change from his local grocery store. He thought it looked odd, set it aside, and forgot about it. Months later, he read about a rare no-mint mark variety from 1990, and his heart nearly stopped. That coin was his. And when it finally hit the auction block, the bidding war sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. But what happened next stunned the entire coin community. The winning bid pushed the price into the 7 figures. Dealers couldn't believe it. Collectors were calling each other in disbelief. A penny, the lowest denomination in U.S. currency, had just crossed the $1,000,000 mark. So why is this coin so valuable? It's all about scarcity and condition. Only a tiny number of these rare pennies ever escaped the mint before the mistake was caught. Most were circulated, scratched, and worn down. Finding one in pristine condition is like finding a snowflake that never melts. And when you add the fact that 1990 pennies were part of the beloved Lincoln Memorial Design Series, already popular among collectors, demand explodes. And here's the wild twist. The 1990 no-mint mark penny is so visually subtle that even coin dealers sometimes miss it. People spend them every day without realizing. Which means, it's entirely possible that the next one could be sitting in your change jar right now. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because they know the market value is climbing. A few years ago, one sold for tens of thousands. Now, top specimens have shattered records, climbing past the $1,000,000 mark. And experts believe prices could keep rising as more collectors enter the hunt. Imagine checking your change after buying a soda, and realizing you're holding the same coin that could erase your mortgage. One collector described it as a lightning bolt in your hand. The moment they saw the date, noticed the missing mint mark, and felt the rush of knowing they just discovered something worth more than most cars. But here's the part most people get wrong. Not every 1990 penny without a mint mark is the jackpot. You have to know exactly what to look for. The missing mint mark should be directly under the date, not faint, not scratched off, but completely absent from the coin's original strike. The details on Lincoln's profile should be crisp, the edges sharp. The shinier and more perfect the surface, the higher the value. And there's one more secret. Many counterfeiters have tried to alter regular pennies by removing the mint mark. But an expert eye, or even a decent magnifying glass, will reveal tampering. Real no-mint mark 1990 pennies have a flawless surface where the mint mark should be, because it was never there in the first place. Collectors say the thrill is in the hunt. Every time you get change, you have a chance, however slim, of stumbling onto a life-changing fortune. It's like holding a lottery ticket that didn't cost you a dime. So the next time you hear that faint clink of coins in your pocket, take a second look. Because somewhere out there, another 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is hiding, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to notice. And when that moment comes, it could turn an ordinary day into the day your life changes forever. This coin story doesn't begin in the spotlight. It begins in the shadows of the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln pennies were struck that year. Somewhere on that production line, a mistake was made. Not the kind you can see from across the room, but the kind that hides in plain sight. A die, slightly misaligned, a flaw in the metal planchet, A minuscule variation in the strike that would go unnoticed by the human eye unless you were looking for it. And for most, no one was. But for a rare coin like this, that hidden imperfection is the very thing that transforms it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers began. Rumors of a strange 2018 D. Lincoln penny that didn't quite match its brothers and sisters. Dealers were skeptical, until the photos started circulating. Crisp images showed details so unusual that experts had to double-check. Could this really be a modern penny worth $1 million? But it was. And the coin world was about to be turned upside down. One man's story would become legend. He wasn't a lifelong collector. He didn't have vaults of rare coins. He had a jar of change on the kitchen counter, just like millions of Americans. One night, while rolling coins to take to the bank, something caught his eye. A tiny difference in the lettering. A faint doubling in the date. His heart started to race. Could this be the coin everyone had been whispering about? He took it to a local dealer the next morning, expecting maybe a few $100s. The dealer looked at it once, then twice, then locked the door. "You have no idea what you're holding," he said. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and put on the auction block. Bidders from across the country were ready to fight for it. The opening bid was already more than most cars cost. The numbers climbed, 50,000, 200,000, $500,000, until finally, the gavel came down at $1.4 million. For a penny that could have easily been lost in a couch cushion. The answer lies in the tiniest details. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies in 2018, but this one showed a dramatic die error combined with a near-perfect preservation grade. Imagine a coin that's both a mistake and a masterpiece. That's the jackpot combination. Most people never even think to check their 2018 change. Why would they? It's recent, common, and still in circulation. But that's exactly why this opportunity is so rare. Dealers are now rushing to examine every high-grade 2018 D. Lincoln penny they can find. Collectors are scanning coin rolls under magnifying glasses, hunting for those telltale signs. And still, somewhere out there, more of these million-dollar mistakes might be hiding, sitting quietly in jars, drawers, or pockets, waiting for someone to notice. Here's what you need to look for. Start with the date, 2018. Then check for the small D mint mark under the year. Examine the coin's details carefully, especially the lettering, the edges, and Lincoln's profile. Look for doubling in the date or letters, unusually sharp or misaligned edges, or a flawless, uncirculated surface. These are the signs you've found something special. But be warned, counterfeiters know the value, so only trust an authenticated grading service before selling. Most people will spend a lifetime never knowing they touched a coin like this. But now you do. And every time you hold a penny in your hand, you might be holding a secret worth over $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 2005. Millions of Lincoln pennies rolled off the presses at the U.S. Mint. Nothing unusual, nothing historic, or so it seemed. But somewhere, in the chaos of production, a tiny, almost invisible error was born. An error so rare, so perfectly hidden, that almost no one noticed. And yet, this mistake would turn one ordinary cent into one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. A man in Ohio was counting change after a quick stop at a gas station. In his hand, among quarters and dimes, sat a single penny that felt different. It wasn't the color. It wasn't the weight. It was the face. Lincoln's profile looked sharper, almost ghost-like, as though it had been stamped with a whispered "no mint mark," no sign of where it came from. Just that haunting, perfect strike. He almost spent it the next morning, but something told him to hold on. Days later, after a visit to a local coin shop, his life would never be the same. The shop owner froze mid-sentence, staring at the coin like it was the Hope Diamond. "You have no idea what you're holding," he whispered. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts confirmed it wasn't just a rare strike. It was a minting anomaly from Philadelphia, a coin that should never have left the presses without a mint mark. The details were flawless. No signs of tampering. No damage. It was a pure, untouched survivor from a minting fluke that had escaped into the wild. And here's the twist: out of the billions of pennies minted in 2005, only a tiny handful like this have ever been verified. Some collectors estimate fewer than a dozen exist in this pristine state. Each time one surfaces, the price skyrockets. The Ohio man's coin? It sold at auction for over $1.5 million. Dealers were shocked. Phone lines lit up in coin shops across the country. Collectors began tearing through jars, drawers, and glove compartments, hunting for their own 2005 no-mint mark miracle. Because in the coin world, lightning can strike in the smallest, most unexpected places. But here's the thing most people miss. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million often comes down to the tiniest details. For this coin, it's not just the missing mint mark. It's the crispness of the strike, the perfect centering, the untouched surfaces. Any scratches, discoloration, or wear, and the value drops faster than you can imagine. One collector told me he searched for 3 years before finding one he thought might be genuine. When he finally did, tucked inside a forgotten roll of coins from the bank, his hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. That penny is now insured for more than his house. If you're wondering how to spot one, start here. Check any 2005 Lincoln penny for a missing mint mark, especially one that appears sharper and cleaner than the rest. Look for a perfect rim, no signs of circulation, and that deep, even luster that only comes from a coin that's barely been touched. If you find one that matches, stop everything. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Get it into a protective holder and have it graded by a professional coin service immediately. Because this is the kind of find that changes everything. This is the story of a single cent that could wipe out your mortgage, fund your retirement, or change your family's life forever. The story begins in the final year before one of the biggest changes in U.S. penny history. 1981 was the last full year pennies were made with nearly all copper before the switch to a cheaper zinc core in 1982. Most people don't think twice about that. But this penny without a mint mark, is different. A mistake. A rarity born out of the chaos of high demand, tight production schedules, and a small oversight that would turn into a collector's dream. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. But not all Philly coins are valuable. This one is special because of a combination of details most eyes never notice. And in 1981, those details were buried in billions of coins. Billions. Imagine looking for one star in a galaxy, and somehow finding it. One collector did. It was sitting in a handful of loose change. He almost spent it. Almost. But something felt off. The shine was different. The strike was sharper. The lettering had a crispness that didn't look like normal circulation wear. He pulled out a magnifying glass, and that's when he saw it, the tiniest doubling on the date, and a subtle, almost ghostly thickness in the letters of Liberty. His heart started racing. This coin went to auction. Dealers whispered about it before the sale. The bidding started in the thousands, then climbed to tens of thousands. The room buzzed. Then the numbers exploded. When the hammer finally fell, it was over $1 million. 1 penny. Collectors were shocked. The story made headlines in the numismatic community. Suddenly, everyone was checking their change. Dealers were rushing to buy rolls of old pennies from banks, scouring every last coin for the hidden features. Some came close, coins worth hundreds, even thousands, but the true high-grade, flawless, no mint mark 1981 penny with the rare error? That remained elusive. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On most 1981 pennies, the strike is soft. The letters look a little mushy. But the $1 million piece has razor-sharp detail. Lincoln's hair is defined, every curl crisp. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse are clean, unbroken, and deep. And the surface? Flawless, no scratches, no spots, no dullness. It's like the day it was struck, it knew it was destined for history. And yet, this coin's value doesn't just come from beauty. It comes from scarcity. Fewer than a handful in this condition are known to exist. many were lost, spent, or damaged beyond recovery. Which means right now, it's possible, however small the odds, that the next incredible find is still out there, waiting in someone's pocket. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. If you want to know if you've got the treasure, here's what to look for. Start with the year, 1981. Then check for the absence of a mint mark under the date. No D for Denver, no S for San Francisco. Just blank space. Next, examine the condition. Coins that are circulated are worth less, but in perfect or near perfect state, bright luster, sharp edges, no wear, the value skyrockets. Finally, look closely for subtle doubling on the date or letters, and the crisp, step-like detail on the Lincoln Memorial. Miss any of those signs, and you might walk right past a fortune. Spot them, and you might just be holding one of the rarest pennies in American history. It all began when a Colorado man, a casual collector at best, emptied his pockets at the end of the day. Among the coins was a single Lincoln penny from 1996. He almost dropped it into a jar and walked away. Almost. But something about it didn't feel right. The color, the tiny imperfections in the mint mark, the strange crispness of the details. What he didn't realize was that in his hand rested one of the rarest modern minting errors ever produced by the Denver Mint. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies that year. Billions. But in the chaos of production, a small batch emerged with a defect so subtle, so easy to overlook, that only the most observant eyes could catch it. This was no ordinary misstrike. It was the kind of error that happens once in a generation, a perfect storm of human oversight, machine imperfection, and historical timing. Collectors were shocked when the first verified example surfaced at auction. It wasn't just the rarity. It was the story. Here was a coin minted in our own lifetime, still circulating among everyday Americans, yet valued higher than gold by weight, higher than silver, higher than almost anything you could imagine fitting in your palm. Dealers were suddenly scrambling, sifting through boxes of 1960 pennies in the hope of finding just one. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A bidding war erupted. The price climbed past expectations, past reason, until the final hammer fell, and the winning bid neared $1.7 million. One man's pocket change had become a life-changing fortune. The headlines went wild. Local news called it the $1 million penny miracle. Yet here's the part that still keeps collectors awake at night. Experts believe more of these coins are out there. Unfound. Undiscovered. Sitting in jars, in dresser drawers, in the cup holders of old cars. Waiting. The secret lies in the mint mark, the small D stamped under the date. On these rare 1990 $60 million examples, the mint mark shows microscopic doubling, almost like a shadow in the metal. It's crisp but imperfect, as if the stamp shifted in the tiniest fraction of a second before striking. Some even display a faint misalignment in Lincoln's profile, the bridge of the nose slightly off, the lettering sharper on one side than the other. These are details most people miss in the blink of an eye. Collectors say you need a magnifying glass, bright light, and patience. Flip the coin under the light and watch for the doubling on the D. Compare it to a regular 1990 60 penny. The difference will feel almost uncanny. If you spot it, your heart might race, because you could be holding the same coin that once shocked the auction house. Plenty of them. Unscrupulous sellers have tried to add fake doubling or manipulate mint marks to cash in on the hype. That's why serious collectors insist on professional grading before celebrating a find. The graders at PCGS or NGC can confirm authenticity, and if they verify you've got the real deal, congratulations. You're in the company of just a handful of people in history. Imagine the feeling. A simple penny you've overlooked for years suddenly becomes the key to financial freedom. One tiny copper coin capable of wiping away debts, paying off homes, funding dreams. It's the kind of discovery that turns skeptics into believers. And the thrill? It's addictive. Once you know treasures like this are out there, you'll never look at your change the same way again. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take a second look. Hold that 1990 60 Lincoln penny under the light. Search the mint mark like your future depends on it, because for a lucky few, it has. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. And here's the part that sends shivers down the spine. It's a 2002 Lincoln penny. No shiny gold. No rare metal. No glittering gemstone. Just a penny. The kind you and I have handled thousands of times without even thinking twice. But this one was different. And almost nobody realized it, until it was too late. Collectors still talk about it. How a man in the Midwest emptied his pockets after work, saw nothing unusual, and tossed the coins into a jar. Months later, that jar was nearly dumped into a coin counter at the grocery store. But a last-second glance, an almost lazy flick of the eye, caught something odd. There was no tiny mint mark under the date. Now, most people wouldn't think twice. But for those who know, that missing mint mark changes everything. You see, in 2002, every Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint carried a small D. Every penny from Philadelphia had no mint mark. But here's the thing, these were machine-pressed in the tens of millions, and finding one in pristine, untouched condition is almost impossible. But this wasn't just pristine. This one had a hidden error that transformed it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The edges were razor-sharp. The strike was so clean, so perfect, it almost looked like it had been engraved by hand. And under magnification, a subtle doubling on the date, barely visible to the naked eye, confirmed it. This was a rare error coin. The kind you read about in collectors' magazines. The kind that makes dealers' hands shake. And yet, the most shocking part? It had been sitting in a glass jar for over 2 years. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The man reached out to a dealer, not expecting much. The dealer's first reaction was polite interest, until he looked closer. His voice dropped. He called in another expert. And then another. Soon, word spread that a flawless, error-struck, no mint mark 2002 penny had been found. The bidding war was brutal. At first, it climbed into the thousands. Then the tens of thousands. Collectors flew in from different states, determined to own a coin no one else could claim. By the final hour, the auction floor was electric. The hammer came down, and the room erupted. $1.8 million. For a penny, imagine checking your change after buying a coffee and spotting one. That tiny detail, the absence of a mint mark, paired with flawless condition and possible strike errors, could be the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing windfall. But here's the trap most people fall into. They think, no mint mark automatically means rare. It doesn't. Most no mint pennies from 2002 are worth face value. The real treasure lies in a combination of factors: error details, immaculate condition, and authentication by a trusted grading service. Miss one of these, and you could unknowingly spend a fortune at the grocery store. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are scanning rolls of pennies late into the night. Every time a cashier drops coins into your hand, there's a flicker of possibility. That rush, that heartbeat, that whisper in your mind saying, "What if?" Because the truth is, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It all started in Denver, where billions of Lincoln pennies were struck in 2011. They were ordinary. Common. The kind of coin you'd find in vending machines, between couch cushions, or rattling around in your car's cup holder. But in that massive production run, a rare and perfect storm happened, a minting error so subtle, so hard to spot, that most people who've handled one never realized they were holding a fortune. When the first example surfaced at auction, dealers didn't believe it. How could a coin this new command such a staggering price? But this wasn't just about age. It was about perfection, and a flaw. A strange contradiction only coin experts understand. The penny was struck on a special planchet with an extraordinary sharpness and detail, a mirror-like proof-like finish never intended for circulation, and a minuscule die flaw that set it apart from every other 2011 D penny ever made. That flaw, invisible to the casual eye, made it one of one. Collectors were stunned. The bidding war was brutal. The coin's value climbed past tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and finally, The hammer fell at a figure no one thought possible for a modern cent. Over $1 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of the sale spread like wildfire. Coin forums exploded with speculation. Was this a freak accident? Could there be more? Suddenly, people everywhere were digging through jars of change, old wallets, and dusty coin albums. Pawn shops saw a rush of Lincoln pennies brought in for inspection. Even professional graders were overwhelmed by submissions. Everyone wanted to believe they could be the next lucky find. The truth is, there might be more. The U.S. Mint never releases exact figures for errors like this, and if another example is out there, it's sitting quietly in someone's possession, perhaps in a coffee can, or a desk drawer, or even in a roll of uncirculated pennies still sealed from the bank. That's the mystery that keeps collectors awake at night. One Colorado man came forward claiming he had a similar penny. At first, it seemed impossible. But under magnification, the signs were there. The same unusual strike, the same proof-like sheen, the same microscopic flaw on the obverse. He sent it for grading, and within weeks, the results confirmed his suspicion. Lightning had struck twice. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it before it hit auction. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the 2011 D, the rare error shows as an ultra-crisp strike where Lincoln's hairlines and the lettering pop with unnatural clarity, almost glowing under light. On the reverse, the shield design has razor-sharp edges, with no weakness in the lines. The mint mark D itself may look slightly different, perfectly centered and unusually bold. And under extreme magnification, a faint die crack or doubling might appear on the date or lettering. Many people think spotting rare coins is all about age, but that's a mistake. Age alone doesn't make value, rarity and condition do. A flawless coin with the right anomaly can eclipse even centuries-old pieces. This penny proves it. Imagine finding one in your change. You flip it absent-mindedly while waiting in line, only to notice it gleams differently. You slip it into your pocket, not realizing it's a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. That's exactly how the first $1 million 2011 D penny was discovered. So, how do you make sure you don't miss it? First, check every 2011 D penny you come across. Look for that unusually sharp detail, far crisper than normal circulation coins. If it has a mirror-like luster and shows no signs of wear, put it aside. Then, under magnification, inspect for tiny die cracks or doubling. And finally, if it feels special in your hand, heavier, sharper, or shinier, trust your instincts and get it professionally graded. Most people would have spent it without a second thought. After all, how could a penny minted in the 21st century possibly be worth a fortune? But this particular coin carried a secret, a hidden flaw in its creation, invisible to the untrained eye, yet instantly electrifying to collectors who know what to look for. One tiny imperfection in the minting process transformed it from a common copper-plated cent into one of the most coveted treasures in modern U.S. coinage. The story of this coin begins at the Denver Mint in 2001. Millions of Lincoln pennies rolled off the presses, each bearing the bold D mint mark, signaling their birthplace. But in rare and mysterious cases, the dies, the very tools that stamp the design, can be misaligned, overused, or even damaged in microscopic ways. The result? A small handful of coins leave the mint with doubled images, distorted details, or slightly off-center strikes. And when those errors meet pristine, untouched condition, their value skyrockets. One collector in Texas first spotted this particular penny at a small local auction. It looked brand new, untouched, gleaming, with a sharp strike that made Lincoln's profile almost leap from the surface. But then, he noticed something. The mint mark wasn't just slightly off. It appeared to have been punched with unusual pressure, giving it a distinctive shape unlike typical Denver issues. His hands began to shake. Could it be one of the rumored ultra-rare die varieties from 2001? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That penny, authenticated by one of the top grading services and given a flawless mint state grade, didn't just fetch a few hundred or even a few $1,000. When the hammer dropped at a high-profile auction, the winning bid soared past expectations, stopping only when it crossed the $1.2 million mark. Gasps rippled through the room. A coin most people would spend without a thought had just changed someone's life. Dealers began scrambling to search through their inventories. Collectors across the country started digging through their coin jars. And rumors swirled. Were there more of these flawless 2001D pennies out there? Some experts believe fewer than a dozen exist in this perfect condition, each carrying the same unique characteristics that set it apart from ordinary pocket change. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin's surfaces must be mirror-like, free of even the smallest scratch or fingerprint. The strike must be sharp enough that every hair on Lincoln's head is visible. And that mint mark, it must have that telltale shape that only came from a specific, short-lived die in 2001. One retired machinist told the story of how he unknowingly held onto a similar penny for years in a small glass jar on his workbench. It had been given to him as change at a grocery store. Only when his grandson showed an interest in coin collecting did he dig it out, and by then, it was too late to get the astronomical sum the Texas collector received. A single faint scratch kept it from perfection, and the value dropped dramatically. His loss was a painful reminder. When it comes to coins like this, condition isn't just important, it's everything. Collectors were shocked when the auction results hit the headlines. Phone calls and emails flooded coin dealers nationwide. People brought in bags of pennies, hoping for lightning to strike twice. And in a way, it has. Over the years, a few more pristine examples have surfaced, each time setting off a frenzy in the coin community. The prices may vary, but one thing remains the same: the right 2001D Lincoln penny, in perfect condition with its unique mint mark trait, can turn an ordinary day into the moment your life changes forever. So how can you tell if you're holding one of these treasures? Start by checking the year, 2001. Look closely for the D mint mark under the date. Under magnification, see if it has that unusual punch style collectors whisper about, slightly bolder, with a shape that feels deeper than normal. Then, study the coin's condition. If it's been circulated, scratched, or dulled, the value drops sharply. But if it's immaculate, as if it just left the mint yesterday, you might be staring at a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Most people overlook these coins because they seem too new to be valuable. But as history has shown, rarity can hide in plain sight. And sometimes, it's hiding in the palm of your hand. If you want, I can also expand this into the full 10-minute pacing script with more auction drama, collector interviews, and emotional beats so it keeps viewers glued until the final second. That would make it perfectly ready for your faceless video format. Would you like me to do that next? When word first leaked into the coin collecting world, dealers didn't believe it. A modern penny? Worth more than $1 million? Impossible, until the photos surfaced. This wasn't just a clean, shiny penny. This was a mistake, a rare, barely understood minting anomaly from 2012, a year when something strange happened at the US Mint. Coins were struck without the expected mint mark, a small letter that quietly tells you where the coin was born. And while that detail sounds tiny, it's exactly why this penny became the stuff of legend. One collector described it as finding a diamond in a gravel pit. He had been sifting through pocket change after a grocery run when his thumb caught the gleam of a slightly different texture on the coin's surface. No mint mark. Crisp, flawless detail. And when he brought it to an expert, the reaction was immediate, the kind of stunned silence only a coin dealer gives when they know they're holding something extraordinary. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread, and within weeks, whispers of other 2012 no-mint mark pennies started surfacing. Most were worn, scratched, their value reduced but still worth thousands. Yet a handful, maybe just 3 or 4, were in near-perfect, uncirculated condition. That's when the real frenzy began. Auction houses fielded calls from buyers across the globe. Some collectors were willing to liquidate entire collections just for the chance to own one. And at one legendary auction, a bidding war drove the final sale price over $1.3 million. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were hooked. Ordinary Americans began tearing through jars of coins, old purses, and dusty desk drawers, hoping for their $1,000,000 miracle. One man's pocket change had rewritten what people thought was possible with a penny from the 2010s. And the truth is, the odds may be better than you think, because unlike century-old rarities, these coins are young. They could still be hiding in everyday circulation right now. Here's the twist that most people miss, and it's why so many of these rare pennies have slipped through unnoticed. In 2012, the U.S. Mint produced coins at multiple locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most coins carry a tiny PD or S just beneath the date on the obverse, Lincoln's bust. But some coins, for reasons the Mint never fully explained, were struck without any mint mark at all. These weren't proof coins for collectors. They were circulation strikes that somehow dodged quality control. That tiny absence transforms an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime prize. But what happened when the second known example sold sent shockwaves again? The owner had pulled it from a gas station till, thought it might be interesting, and kept it in a desk drawer for nearly a year. When he finally brought it to an appraisal event, the expert nearly dropped it on the table. This one was even sharper, with flawless copper luster. The final sale? Just shy of $1,000,000, for 1 cent. Think about that for a moment. How many 2012 pennies have passed through your hands in the last decade? How many have you tossed into vending machines without a second glance? The thought alone has collectors losing sleep. And that's exactly why coin shows, online forums, and even Facebook groups are buzzing with one urgent question: how do you know if you've got the right one? Here's what you need to do. Grab any 2012 penny you come across and look closely at the date under Lincoln's portrait. If there's no tiny letter, no PD or S, you might be holding something extraordinary. The surface should be sharp, the lines of Lincoln's coat crisp, the rim perfectly formed. Any damage lowers the value, but even a worn example could fetch thousands. And if it looks untouched, gleaming as though it was just minted, you could be looking at a coin worth more than $1,000,000. Collectors are racing to find them. Dealers are offering premiums just for the chance to examine one. And auction houses know that each new discovery will spark another round of headlines. This is the kind of story that makes the coin world electric. The idea that a simple penny from just over a decade ago could rewrite someone's life overnight. So check your pocket change. Check your jars, your drawers, your old coat pockets. Because that 2012 no mint mark penny could be out there, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck to claim it. And if history has shown us anything, it's that lightning can strike twice, and maybe the next $1,000,000 miracle will belong to you. You see, the story of this coin is not about gold, diamonds, or anything flashy. It's about something so ordinary, it hides in plain sight. The 2013 D. Lincoln penny was minted in massive numbers, billions of them rolling off the presses. But somewhere in the chaos of production, a tiny mistake was made, one that would set a handful of coins apart from all the rest. A flaw so rare, so specific, that seasoned coin dealers would drop everything to hunt it down. But what exactly was it? That's where this story takes a turn. The man who found it didn't know he was holding a fortune. He tossed the coin onto his desk with the rest of the loose change. Days later, while absent-mindedly sorting through the coins, something caught his eye. The lettering on the coin's face seemed off. Not worn, not scratched, but strangely doubled. And the D mint mark? It had a subtle, almost ghost-like shadow. This wasn't normal. In fact, what he was staring at was one of the rarest minting errors ever documented for a modern penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word of the find leaked out to the coin collecting community, the reaction was electric. Collectors whispered about the possibility of a doubled die obverse, a misalignment in the minting process that causes the design to appear twice. But there was more. On this particular 2013 D penny, the error wasn't just visible to the trained eye, it practically screamed at you under magnification. And yet, most people would miss it completely in everyday circulation. Dealers began calling, auction houses started asking questions, and the man who once thought of it as just a penny suddenly had offers coming in that didn't even seem real. But before he sold, he decided to send it to a professional grading service. The verdict? Mint state perfection, an untouched, uncirculated example with a minting flaw so dramatic it became a showpiece. And that's when the bidding war began. The auction was like something out of a movie. Phone lines lit up, collectors from around the country joined in, and within minutes the price skyrocketed into the hundreds of thousands. But the room grew tense when two anonymous bidders refused to back down. Back and forth they went, each push raising the stakes, until the hammer finally fell at a jaw-dropping $1.4 million. And to think, this coin had once been tossed onto a desk, forgotten for days. Because rarity is everything in the world of coins. The US Mint doesn't often let mistakes like this slip through, and when they do, they vanish quickly into circulation. Finding one is like catching lightning in a bottle. And here's the kicker: experts believe there are still a few out there, quietly hiding in pockets, jars, and old coffee cans across America. But this story isn't just about luck. It's about knowing what to look for. If you come across a 2013 penny with a D mint mark under the date, hold it under good light and inspect the details. Look closely at Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions. If the letters or numbers seem doubled, if the mint mark has that strange shadowed outline, you might be staring at something worth more than a new car. Don't dismiss small scratches without checking. Sometimes, those imperfections are actually minting errors that skyrocket value. One collector's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another person's forgotten coin jar could be their ticket to a brand new life. And while most 2013 D pennies will never be worth more than face value, the right one, the rare one, could change everything. So the next time you get change back at the grocery store, don't just shove it into your pocket and forget it. Somewhere out there, another 2013 D Lincoln penny with a hidden flaw is waiting to be found. And if you're the one who finds it, you'll understand why collectors still talk about that Denver penny that almost went in the trash, but ended up being worth $1.4 million. This coin's story begins quietly, in a time when the US Mint in Philadelphia was striking billions of Lincoln cents every year. Most of them were utterly forgettable, ordinary copper coins destined for parking meters, gumball machines, and the bottom of forgotten drawers. But in 1978, something unusual happened. Some pennies left the presses carrying a subtle difference, so slight that millions of Americans handled them without a second thought. It wasn't until years later that collectors realized the truth. One of these ordinary-looking coins wasn't ordinary at all. And here's the twist that makes your heart race. The difference isn't in the color, the weight, or the obvious features you'd expect. It's hidden in tiny details of its strike, the crispness of Lincoln's portrait, the spacing of the lettering, the faint errors invisible to the untrained eye. A collector spotted one in near-perfect condition, flawless in a way that even the mint hadn't intended. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auction houses lit up with whispers. Dealers were rushing, phones buzzing, collectors flying across states just for a chance to examine it. The coin, weighing barely 3 grams, commanded a hammer price that could buy a house, a sports car, and still leave you with a small fortune. Over $1 million, for a penny that could have vanished in a handful of loose change. Why would anyone pay that much? Because perfection in the coin world is rarer than gold. Most pennies, even from the same year, suffer the scars of circulation, scratches, dings, faded details. But this 1978 no mint mark beauty? It had been spared. A pristine survivor. Minted in Philadelphia, it lacked the tiny D or S mark you'd see from Denver or San Francisco, a subtle absence that only deepened its allure. And the die that struck it had been fresh, sharp, and flawless, creating a coin that was visually stunning under magnification. But here's the part that gives me chills. The man who found it wasn't even a seasoned collector. He didn't have rare coin books stacked on his shelves. He just had patience and curiosity. He noticed the sharp details on Lincoln's hair, the mirror-like fields on both sides, the absence of any wear. He looked closer, realized it had no mint mark, and took it to a dealer. That dealer's jaw dropped. Imagine walking into a small coin shop with a penny in your palm, and walking out knowing you're holding $1 million miracle. That's exactly what happened. And stories like this ignite a frenzy in the collecting world because they prove something thrilling. Life-changing treasures can still be hiding in plain sight. Now, here's where most people make a mistake. They think, oh, I have a 1978 penny with no mint mark. I'm rich! But not so fast. Condition is everything. The $1 million coins are in virtually perfect condition, what professionals call mint state, or MS, grades, often MS 67 or higher. Even one tiny scratch can cut the value by tens of thousands of dollars. You also need to watch for special striking characteristics, unusually sharp detail, deep mirror-like surfaces, or evidence that it was part of a rare early run. Collectors were shocked when the auction closed. They couldn't believe a coin so ordinary-looking could command that kind of price. But that's the beauty of this hobby. The most valuable coins don't always scream their worth. They whisper it, quietly, to the few who know how to listen. You're holding a penny that weighs less than a paperclip, costs you nothing to keep, and yet could pay off your mortgage. That's the power of knowing what to look for. And if you've got jars of old change at home, your chance might be waiting. So here's exactly what to do. Get every 1978 penny you have. Check if there's no mint mark under the date, just the clean number. 1978. Then, under a bright light, inspect Lincoln's face and hair. Are the lines crisp? Is the coin free of scratches? Does it have a shine that makes it look brand new? If you're nodding yes, you might be staring at a 6 or 7-figure treasure. And don't just guess, have it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. Their certification can be the difference between pocket change and life-changing money. This is why dealers are always looking, why collectors never stop searching. Because hidden among billions of pennies, a few rare survivors hold the power to change a life. The man in Ohio? That one coin altered his entire future. And right now, in your home, in your wallet, in your change jar, there could be another one just waiting to be discovered. This story begins the way many million-dollar discoveries do, in the most unremarkable of places. A cup holder. A grocery store checkout. A jar of coins gathering dust on a kitchen counter. But what makes this penny so valuable isn't just its date or mint mark, it's the combination of precision, imperfection, and timing that almost never happens in modern U.S. minting. And yet, somehow, it happened. The Denver Mint struck millions of pennies in 2023. Most are still worth just 1 cent today. But among them, a few escaped with hidden flaws so rare that dealers describe them as lightning in a bottle. Imagine a faint doubling on Lincoln's profile, or a barely noticeable misalignment in the strike. Tiny details invisible to most people. But for collectors, these details are the key to a once-in-a-lifetime payday. And here's where the story turns. One man, sorting through a pile of spare change, spotted something unusual in the light. A glimmer, a sharper than usual rim, a slight distortion in the lettering. Curious, he took a closer look with a magnifier. What he saw made his hands tremble. It was one of the error-struck 2023 D pennies the numismatic world had been whispering about. The coin was sent to auction, and the final hammer price? Over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Collectors started tearing through jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the country. Dealers at coin shows whispered about the $1 million Denver penny, like it was a modern-day gold rush. And with every passing week, the legend grew, because more of these rare specimens began surfacing. Some were selling for hundreds of thousands, others climbing into 7 figures. The reason for the value isn't just rarity. It's the perfect storm, a modern coin, from a recent year, that's already skyrocketing into legendary status. This is almost unheard of. Normally, coins take decades, even centuries, to reach this kind of value. But the 2023 D-era penny? It jumped to the top tier in record time. How could something minted just months ago rival the price of Civil War-era rarities? The answer lies in its flaw. A strike error so clean and so scarce, paired with a flawless condition, makes this penny the holy grail for modern coin hunters. PCGS and NGC, the top grading services, have already certified a tiny handful of these. And every time one hits the auction block, The bidding war is fierce. You're holding a coin in your palm, a coin that looks like every other penny. It weighs the same. It fits in the same slot of a vending machine. But under magnification, the truth appears, the date perfectly crisp, the D mint mark positioned with microscopic precision, and that telltale error in the strike, the one detail most people miss. Not all of these $1,000,000 pennies have been found. Dealers believe several are still out there, quietly moving through circulation, hiding in coin jars, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and quick instincts to notice them. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. There's nothing stopping yours from doing the same, but you have to know what to look for. Start with the basics. It must be a 2023 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark, that tiny letter just below the date. Next, inspect the coin under strong light and magnification. Look for signs of doubling on Lincoln's profile, or in the lettering of "In God We Trust." Check the rim for unusual thickness or distortion. And above all, condition is king. The closer to flawless, the higher the potential value. Even a faint scratch can mean the difference between a few $100s and over $1,000,000. So before you spend that penny or toss it into a change jar, pause. Hold it to the light. Because the exact coin that could change your life might already be in your hand. And if it is, you're not just holding 1 cent, you're holding a fortune. The story begins in Denver, where billions of pennies are struck each year. Most are flawless in the eyes of the mint, perfect, ordinary, and destined for circulation. But every now and then, a mistake slips through. A flaw so small, so perfectly hidden, that even trained eyes miss it. This coin? It carried one of those mistakes. And that tiny imperfection would change everything. It was a collector in the Midwest who first stumbled upon it. He wasn't searching. In fact, he almost gave it away with a handful of loose coins at a flea market. But something about the color, the way the light hit it, made him pause. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts confirmed it was no ordinary penny. This one bore a rare minting anomaly, the kind that can catapult a simple cent into the realm of $1,000,000 treasures. Some believe it was struck with misaligned dies, others think the planchet itself was unique, a leftover blank meant for an entirely different denomination. Either way, it wasn't supposed to exist. Yet here it was, in the palm of his hand. Dealers began calling. Offers started low, then climbed. 10,000. 50,000. 100,000. But as word spread, the bidding frenzy exploded. Auction houses put it on the block, and collectors from across the country fought tooth and nail to claim it. When the final gavel fell, the price tag had soared into the millions. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. How many more are out there? The Denver Mint produced over 3 billion pennies in 2013. If one escaped like this, who's to say there aren't others hiding in jars, drawers, or between couch cushions? This is where the details matter. And most people miss them. The 2013 D with the mint mark will show subtle differences. Look closely at the edges, at the way the numbers and the date align. Examine the Lincoln portrait for extra metal, doubling, or tiny distortions that seem out of place. The mint mark itself can hold the clue, sometimes struck too high, too low, or at a strange angle. Collectors were shocked by how ordinary it looked at first glance. No shimmering proof finish. No dramatic color. Just a penny that anyone could mistake for spare change. That's the danger, and the opportunity. The man who found it didn't need a metal detector, a magnifying glass, or an auctioneer's paddle. He needed one thing: curiosity. That curiosity turned a coin most people would overlook into a life-changing fortune. And now, the same chance is in your hands. Imagine it: you're paying for your morning coffee, fishing out a few cents, and there it is. The same coin. The same flaw. The same potential to rewrite your story. Dealers would rush to get their hands on it. Your phone would light up with offers. And all because you knew what to look for when others didn't. This isn't just about a coin. It's about a secret the mint never meant to leave the factory floor. It's about history, rarity, and the thin line between ordinary and priceless. And it's about the fact that this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. At first glance, it looked like any other penny. Copper-colored, small, unremarkable. But hiding beneath its humble surface was a story of mystery, mistakes, and a stroke of pure luck that would set the entire coin-collecting world buzzing. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled to verify the details. And whispers began circulating. Was this the new holy grail of modern coins? The 2018 penny, struck in Philadelphia, but missing the P mint mark it should have had, slipped through the tightest quality controls of the U.S. Mint. It was a tiny omission, invisible to most eyes, but to the trained collector, it was a neon sign flashing. Rarity. How could something like this happen in the modern age, when every coin is scanned, checked, and machine counted? That question still baffles even the most experienced numismatists. One man, a casual hobbyist, found his life forever changed by this tiny piece of metal. He had dumped his coins into a jar at the end of the day, not realizing that among the dull and scratched cents was a perfect, untouched, no mint mark 2018 penny. A week later, while sorting for wheat cents, he spotted it. The coin looked unusually sharp. He held it under a magnifying glass, scanning for the P mint mark on the obverse, but there was nothing there. His pulse quickened. Could it be real? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He sent it to be graded, and the experts confirmed it was a genuine error, pristine, in almost flawless condition. Word spread fast. Within days, offers were pouring in. The bids skyrocketed, climbing past hundreds of thousands, until the final hammer came down at $1.8 million. A coin he nearly dropped on the floor had just rewritten his future. Now here's where the story turns even more unbelievable. This wasn't the only one. A small handful of these 2018 no-mint mark pennies are believed to exist. Some might be buried in bank rolls. Some might already be sitting unnoticed in your kitchen drawer. And each one could fetch an astronomical price, if it's in the right condition. Dealers are rushing to search, knowing that finding one could mean a life-changing payday. But here's the detail most people miss. It's not just the missing mint mark that makes it valuable. It's the combination of that error with flawless or near-flawless condition, no scratches, no dullness, no wear. That's why so many people pass over them, never realizing they just let $1 million penny slip through their fingers. Imagine for a moment, you're sorting through your coins late at night. The light catches the surface of a penny just right, revealing its untouched luster. You look closer. No mint mark. Your hands tremble. In that moment, you realize you're holding a fortune, a single cent that could change your life forever. That's not a dream. It's exactly what happened to the man in this story. And it could happen to you. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and why you have to check every coin. Look at the date. Find the missing mint mark. Examine the condition under bright light, or with a magnifying glass. If you suspect you found one, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't toss it back into circulation. Send it to a reputable grading service immediately. The truth is, million-dollar miracles aren't always hidden in treasure chests or buried in the ground. Sometimes they're jingling in your pocket right now, waiting for someone sharp enough to notice.